everyone. Thank you for joining us today for EarthEcho's STEMExplore virtual field trip, From Buildings to Jet Engines, Innovative Engineering at its Finest, featuring Ciara Poolman of United Technologies in Hartford, Connecticut. My name is Casey Gaylord-Opaleski, and I'm the STEMExplore coordinator here at EarthEcho International. We are so excited to have students from all over the globe joining us as we learn about STEM careers. This live event is part of STEMExplore, EarthEcho's newest program that is taking inspiration to access by telling the stories of dynamic women in STEM careers during live virtual field trips. We are excited to bring STEMExplore to life thanks to generous funding from our presenting sponsor, United Technologies. You can explore a number of STEM careers, as well as tune in for upcoming live events like this one at EarthEcho's STEMExplore website, STEMExplore.org. Now, I'd first of all like to start off by recognizing and thanking STEMExplore's 5 partner sites across the country. Boys and Girls Club of Santa Clarita Valley in Santa Clarita, California, Youth Power 365 in Vail, Colorado, MEC-Ed in Charlotte, North Carolina, Love a Sea Turtle in Greenville, North Carolina, and the YWCA of Greater Hartford in Hartford, Connecticut. So first, let's welcome our interactive sites today for our virtual field trip. Let's head on over to our friends at YWCA in Hartford. They are out there at Windsor High School this afternoon. So why don't we go ahead and YWCA in Windsor, unmute your microphone and say hello to everyone.
Say hi.
Wonderful to see you all out there. Excellent. Let's head on down south to Greenville, North Carolina, and let's start off with Ms. Wright's class at D.H. Conley. They are representing our friends at Love a Sea Turtle. So, Ms. Wright, how is everyone out there? Wonderful to see everyone out there. Thanks for joining us. Now, just across the building at D.H. Conley, we also have another group joining us from Love a Sea Turtle. Mr. Walston, go ahead and unmute and say hello. Hello, everyone. Great to see you out there. We're so excited to have you join us today. Now, for those of you out there that are watching, if you're viewing any of our live streams, either on our YouTube channel or STEMExplore.org, you too can participate and ask questions. So if you're watching on our YouTube channel, simply use the chat space on the right or below the viewer. If you're watching directly on EarthEcho's STEMExplore website, click Submit Questions, and that will direct you to a Google form, which we are monitoring. So please go ahead and post any questions in that chat space or on that Google form now or at any point during this live event. We'll be answering these questions throughout and have set aside time at the end for some extra question and answers. All right, now let's get this party started, and I want to welcome everyone to our first STEMExplore virtual field trip, and I do want to welcome our very first STEMExplore mentor, Ciara Poolman. Hello, Ciara. How are you?
Hey there. I'm doing well.
Good. Wonderful to hear from you. Where are you coming to us live from, Ciara?
So I'm in Hartford, Connecticut, but I was actually just this morning in Brooklyn at our other office.
All right. Sounds great. They keep you busy. That is for sure. Great. Well, what a better way to introduce Ciara and what it is that she does by a great video that showcases some of the amazing things that she does right there at United Technologies. So without further ado, let's introduce Ciara.
I'm Ciara Poolman, Chief of Staff to our Chief Technology Officer here at UTC, and I've been with the company for 5 years. I came into UTC from graduate school at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. It focused predominantly in thermodynamics. I think that being able to own something early on and grow in my position and kind of make a stake in the sand for kind of my expertise level really helped me have the confidence to be able to do this job and to feel like I'm contributing something at a higher level in this role, being surrounded by executives and not being an executive myself. It's so cool to see that kids at that age can really kind of witness the environment around them and produce something to make it better. Why do they have tools all the way up here? It's kind of amazing to think they're doing all of this. And when I think back on my age, I was playing with my Legos, not really inventing much, right? I was trying to make sure my little brother didn't break them. The level of investment that UTC made is absolutely incredible to see. And it's really critical to how we succeed as a company moving forward. I was the first person in my family to go to college, and I'm the first one to be an engineer. So it's really different for me to come from that background and for my family to be able to see me up on stage speaking about what I'm doing.
There's nothing more inspiring than seeing a smile on somebody's face when you've just made some part of their life better.
Being able to relay to my niece that, hey, what these kids are doing, it's kind of what I do on a day-to-day basis, right? I come up with new ideas and I try to make it to the market so I can go help people. You know, your family has a big impact on what your interests are. For these kids to be so young, to be involved, and to have their parents there supporting them, it's critical. I want to be that person, right, that has the ability to reinforce what someone thinks they want to do and to really kind of continue to drive their passion in STEM fields.
All right, that was awesome. Now, I think a better way to introduce Ciara is for Ciara to tell us a little bit more about yourself. So, Ciara, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
All right, excellent. So first thing I will tell you is there's nothing more embarrassing than watching a video about yourself. So we'll get started with that. So I put a few slides together to kind of help introduce you to who I am. I think at the very heart of it, I'm just a regular person, right? I don't really do anything special on my day-to-day, right? I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I grew up on a lake. The lake pictured there is actually the lake that I grew up on at my grandparents' house. That's where I spent most of my time. And I'd say most of the technical expertise I gained was spending time on that lake with my grandpa, fixing the boat or working on the lawnmower or something like that might break, right? I don't have a family that's ever been strong in automotive or cars or even someone that was an engineer previously. So it was really kind of the fundamental things that I learned around the house and the exposure that I got through just regular activities with my family. But you know, I've always been a big biker and like being able to fix my road and my mountain bike. And those things have also kind of helped me become a little more mechanically inclined as well. And I continue to do those now. So much younger, I was riding BMX bikes, but it hurts a little bit more the older you get when you fall. So I've transitioned to riding my road bike and my mountain bike more. In the winter, in order to survive and to stay happy, I am a snowboarder. So I do like to go fast, whether it's on dirt, the road, or on snow. The picture there you'll see is with my niece. She's the only niece I have, and you know, I absolutely love her. We have such a great time together. And you know, I put a picture there because I am determined that my niece is going to be an engineer, right? Like I gift her Legos all the time, partially for my own good because I just want a good excuse to play with them still. But you know, I'm determined that she's going to be the next generation of engineer in our family. And in the upper left-hand corner there, you'll see my family. So my younger brother, myself, my mom, and my dad. We went skydiving for my dad's 50th birthday. So I have a family that's ready for adventure, as you can kind of see. So, you know, if we go on to the next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about my career. So I graduated high school in Michigan. I had never really traveled much, didn't have a family that traveled very much. I mean, we traveled a little bit, but it was usually camping. So when I left to go to school, it was the first time I had really spent more than a couple days, maybe a week out of state. So I went and did my undergraduate degree at Rochester Institute of Technology in upstate New York, in Rochester, New York. And what I did there was I focused in mechanical engineering technology. And engineering technology is more of an applied approach to engineering, less of the theory-based. So I had gone to a school that was very focused on teaching itself, because I knew that for myself I needed, you know, this structure and smaller class sizes to be able to really focus and learn. I knew that for me that's what was best. And another key thing about RIT was that, and they continue to have, is a co-op program. So rather than just doing small internships over the summer, I actually spent, you know, 10 to 12 weeks working through the winter or whatever time it was in regular jobs throughout my career there at RIT through graduation. And so one of those co-ops, and which really turned into 3 of them, was at Procter Gamble in Cincinnati, Ohio. And while I was at Procter Gamble, I got to do everything from learning how to manufacture and all the way up to talking to customers and designing a Swiffer. Now, a Swiffer seems like a pretty insignificant thing when you think about the technology that goes behind it. But and I thought that, right? I had underestimated it at first. And I think that what's really cool about it is how much technology really does go into it from a manufacturing standpoint, and even how you translate what a customer wants when they tell you, oh, I want my floor to be clean, but I don't want a streak left behind if it's like the wet pad. Right? There are certain things, certain levels of lotion you might put on the floor or things like that to help maintain that. It is a very scientific thing to figure out how much of a drop of lotion it takes to actually make somebody's floor shine the perfect amount that they're satisfied with, that they choose your product over a competitor's. So I think it was a very new way of applying engineering that I had never thought of, because I always really thought, like, well, what does an engineer do? They work on cars, they work on jet engines, very, very simple things that we tend to just assume out of engineers. So it was a very interesting and inspiring experience for me, because I really learned that I had the opportunity to make a big impact on lives. Because the person that I spoke to first about it were my grandparents, and they just thought it was the coolest thing that I was working on a product that they actually used every day and impacted their lives. And my great grandmother as well, she uses a Swiffer all the time. It made her life easy. So, that for me was a big inspiration in terms of where I kept going and keeping customer-centric design as kind of a paramount thing in my career as I move forward. And I took those skills with me through every job I've had after and every experience that I've held. So I graduated from RIT. I received a fellowship to the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And through fellowship, I didn't have to teach. I was so excited, so relieved to not have to teach while I was in graduate school. But I received my master's in mechanical engineering there. And I had actually focused on thermodynamics and applying, very rudimentary thermodynamic knowledge to figuring out a solution for waste heat recovery. So if you imagine like your car engine, you have hot air that comes off of your engine. And what we would want to do is actually capture some of that air coming off and use all of that heat that's been generated and turn it into some kind of useful work that we can use to drive the air conditioning on the other side of your car, so that you're essentially saving energy at the end of the day. And so a lot of that is driven through thermodynamics and the use of a refrigerant that you would typically think of as in your refrigerator that actually helps keep your refrigerator cold. So through studying different refrigerants and different systems to be able to make that happen effectively. And so I spent a lot of time, a lot of frustrating time some days, on building a test stand to actually mimic this environment. So by learning hands-on, what worked and what didn't work, sometimes painfully, sometimes I would just put the wrong fitting in the wrong place, and I was using every muscle I had to be able to unscrew it. But it's learning hands-on was a completely new opportunity for me to work on something at that level and to be able to see some kind of result and say, I built this, and it runs, it turns on, and it works, right? It's actually doing something. And it took me until grad school to really get to that level of it, where I was getting excited about thermodynamics. Because when I was an undergrad, it was a class that I painstakingly took, but I was apprehensive going into grad school, but certainly never regretted it, which led me to where I am now. So when I graduated with my master's degree, I went to Carrier in Syracuse, New York. Now, most people think of Carrier as what keeps your house cold, right? Just standard air conditioning. Willis Carrier invented air conditioning, so that's what everybody knows. But I actually went to our refrigeration business, which I bias, but I think it's the coolest part of Carrier's businesses, right? So if you think about it, we previously had the Taylor Company, which made the ice cream machines in McDonald's. You may have seen them, or at your local ice cream shop. So, I had the opportunity to work on those when we had those in our portfolio. But then what I focused on a lot was on transport refrigeration, which is really, really cool. You don't really think about it until it's kind of put in front of you. But it's basically like a giant refrigerator on steroids, then strapped to an 18-wheeler truck or to a container that goes over the ocean. There are a lot of things that you have to think about, because if you look at most of these units, the larger ones, they don't actually have a plug like you would plug your refrigerator in. They actually have their own engine on board to be able to generate the electricity that they need to run the system itself. So there are a lot of interesting things that come into that, that really, how the systems interact with each other. How do you reduce energy but still maximize the output of cooling that you have, so that when someone gets their ice cream 30 days later, if it's, some expensive shipment across the ocean, or if it's a pharmaceutical, that it's held to that proper temperature the entire time, because the slightest temperature deviation can lead to a significant quality decrease. Or if you think about the case of pharmaceuticals, there's a very tight temperature that you have to hold to be able to keep those, maintained and certified so that they're safe for other people to use. So I think it was something that I really, underestimated the impact that it had. But I mean, I grew to love it, and I continue to love it. It's something that I've grown to be really, really passionate about. And so the other part of the business was also the commercial refrigeration cabinets. So if you think about when you go to the grocery store to get the milk out, those are commercial refrigeration cabinets. So we had that business over in Europe, and I worked quite a bit with the team there to develop kind of the next generation products that you would see coming out in 2, 3, 5 years as well. And so part of one of those initiatives, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but one thing that, we really started to get into was this farm to fork initiative, right? And like how our businesses really touched a lot of elements of what would be considered the cold chain. So a cold chain would be like, if you think about a farmer and, how the farmer would move their goods from their farm to maybe a distribution center, and then distribution center to a store, that's a cold chain, so that you can track the temperature of your products throughout that chain to know that it's actually been held relatively safely. And you know what, another great byproduct of keeping your food safe and holding the temperature is that you also reduce the food waste. So that's been a really interesting part of that I really never would have thought that I would have had, this great impact on people's lives, just by working on some of these heavier industrial products that before I kind of thought, no, I'm okay, right? I want to keep going to work on the Swiffer. So, I say that to reinforce you to keep your mind open. Don't always assume something about a product or a company or anything in your life, right? Take a chance on it, because honestly, if I hadn't taken chances, I wouldn't be where I am today. I took chances on things, and I got very excited about them, and that excitement drove me to want to dive deeper and deeper into our businesses and to learn more. And that's really only helped me to where I am now. And so, if we focus on the arrow there, what I haven't quite captured is what my job is today, because my job's, it's a little weird, right? If I'm honest, it's a little weird. I don't do traditional engineering work as much. So I work for our chief technology officer, who is like the top engineer in our company. And what I do is basically make sure that our office is running as smoothly and effectively as possible. And that includes watching over our technology initiatives across our entire company. So now I'm not just looking at Carrier. Now I'm looking at Otis elevators. I'm looking at, all of our components that we have under our aerospace business, and then also Pratt & Whitney jet engines. So that little kid excitement inside of me, it comes out every day, right? I took a class the other day on how to learn about our new jet engine that we came out with, and I got to walk out to the shop floor and go touch it and play with it and then take it apart, right? So it's, that little kid excitement gets to continue with me every single day in this job, and even in my last job, it was absolutely there to drive me along. So we'll go to the next slide. So one thing I wanted to point out, because I think a big part of it is travel. So I have an opportunity to have exposure to not just the people that I work with here in Hartford and down in New York, but all across the globe. We make different parts for our businesses and our products all around the globe. And we have engineering and design centers everywhere. So I've had the opportunity to travel to several countries. Many of these places, these dots on the map, I've spent a pretty decent amount of time in. I've spent a lot of time in Germany, getting to know the culture and the people. And, it really helps you learn and understand a new perspective when you're starting to look at products, how you design them, how people think about how you might help them with the products as well. So, I'm someone, I didn't grow up traveling, but man, once I started traveling with Carrier and with my job, I loved it. I was hooked. And I was so motivated every time I went to a new site to hear people's excitement about a project that I had and how they wanted to contribute, or maybe an idea that they had, but they didn't have time to build out, but maybe I had an opportunity to be able to help them out. So, the travel has been a really cool aspect of this job that I think often gets overlooked or even sometimes taken for granted. So, I continue to do that with my boss now. We go to a lot of different sites. I'm able to see a lot of new manufacturing processes that I never would have been introduced to. I'm able to learn about jet engines at a level that I just never even would have imagined if I had not had a job working in an aerospace industry. So a lot of what my job is for me to learn about our businesses, how they're operating, and to get leadership development experience. So that's exactly what I'm doing. So, it's a short-term position, and then I'll kind of rotate out. A new person will come in here, and then I'll be off on my merry way, hopefully doing something extra exciting in a couple of years here. So I'm a pretty big question and answer person. I'm not very formal in terms of how I want to present or anything. So I want you guys to kind of hammer me with questions, and no boundaries. So if you're nervous about a question, it's okay. Just go for it.
Sounds perfect. Thank you so much, Ciara. That was such a good overview of your path, where you came from, and how you got to where you are today. And I think something really important that you said is that you took chances. And you had mentioned that you had taken a class in undergrad that you really didn't like, but then you gave it another shot, and it turns out it's something that you love to do. So I think that's really important for everybody to keep an open mind as you continue your path throughout life. So let's go to questions now. And so let's go to our interactive sites first and foremost. So we're gonna go to our friends up in Hartford, Connecticut at the YWCA, who is at Windsor High School right now. So Windsor High School, go ahead and unmute. And if you have any questions for Ciara, we would love to hear those.
Do I have a question? A question?
Yes.
It's okay if we don't have any now.
Yeah.
Hopefully you'll think of some. Don't be shy.
Can y'all think of a question?
What inspires you most about your work or what you do?
That's great. So what inspired you most about your work and what you do?
This is a really good question. I think that seeing the impact that the work that I do has on people at the end of the day, right? So what I think about the work that I did with refrigeration and how transporting vaccines is a critical thing to be able to help people just, right, be healthy. Seeing how the products that you work on impact everyday people's lives at the end of the day was something that always kept me inspired. And the closer I am to the customer, the more inspired I get every single day. I think that's a really critical thing for me that keeps me going, is to see people happy, smiling about something that we may have impacted. And I think jet engines, that's kind of a next level, like, even my fiance's stepdad, he loves jet engines. He's not an engineer by any means, right? But this guy gets so excited about jet engines, and I think it is so cool that I can sit down and talk to him about it and teach him these things as well. And these are products that I actually get to work on at the end of the day.
That's awesome. Great question. Do we have another one out there with the YWCA in Hartford?
Mama? No.
All right, we will come back to you all, so don't worry. Let's head on down south to Greenville, North Carolina. We are going to start off with Ms. Wright's class. If you could go ahead and unmute your microphone at DH Conley, Ms. Wright with Love a Sea Turtle in Greenville, North Carolina. Do you have any questions?
They decided to make an announcement right now when you asked us to ask questions.
Okay, sounds good. So why don't you mute your microphone for now, and then I will tell our viewing audience how they can submit their questions. Just as a reminder, if you are watching on YouTube, you can use that chat space to the right or right below that viewing window. So you can just chat those questions right into us. You can also, if you are watching on STEMExplore.org, click on Submit Questions. And that will get you to a Google form where you can submit your question here. So I do have one question coming in from the Google form. So for students who are interested in engineering, Ciara, what are the top 3 things they can do to test out their interest and decide if engineering is something they want to study further?
That is a great question. So I think that there are a lot of community opportunities that you can use to get involved. I know that, like, at my high school and in the community, we had things like different types of robotics competitions, or even some types of engineering competitions that get you involved with other people as well, because I think it gives you a good opportunity to to try new things. And I will tell you, like, if someone said, why don't you go do a robotics competition when I was in high school, I'd have been like, I have no idea how to do that. And I think that the great thing about that is that you meet a lot of people that do know how, and you actually get an opportunity to learn and to contribute, you know, your skills, and then, you know, take on new skills before you go off to school as well. So I think getting involved in different activities, and maybe in the community or through your school. I think that another thing is trying out different courses while you have the opportunity in school as well. So I took a couple of advanced placement physics classes. I took a computer science class that, you know, if you ask my mom, I just about cried every day when I came home because it was so difficult. But, you know, now, of course, I actually enjoy computer science. So I think, you know, try and push yourself in some classes, or maybe try and learn a little bit more. I think, you know, when I was your age, I did not quite have the internet at the same level that you do. So I know there are a lot of classes that are available online. There's even like some, you know, academies that you can do online to learn about coding, and, you know, watch YouTube videos to try out and see if you're interested in things. But I'm going to give you a fourth thing, I guess. I think there's also a lot of just tools available, and like test kits for you to just buy, or even, I know like our local libraries have kits available that are kind of like small science kits and projects that you can build. So do things like that. I think for me, it was working on my bike, right? Like that wasn't something that I really had to go out and find. I just found things around the house, like for better or worse, my parents had things fixed or sometimes broken if they wanted it. So I think just keep playing with things, keep trying things out, take them apart, ask for permission first, but, you know, take them apart and, you know, be curious.
Awesome. All right, so let's try our friends at DH Conley again. DH Conley, Ms. Wright's class with Love a Sea Turtle. Go ahead and unmute your microphone, and let's hope the announcements are over.
Yes, they are. All right.
Perfect.
How long have you been engineering?
How long have you been an engineer? Was that the question?
Yes.
Perfect.
Well, that's tricky, because I think that, like, if you want to say that you're a fairy princess, you can say you're a fairy princess, right? Like, that's one of those things where you just kind of get to define something for yourself, right? But if I go by degree, I've been like a degreed engineer for 6 years. Man, that's it goes fast. So I've been a degreed engineer for 6 years, but if I think back to it and the things that I did as a kid, I've been an engineer, had an engineer's mindset since I was like 8 years old.
Great. Do we have another question out there at Ms. Wright's class at DH Conley?
Yes, Harrison.
All right. What schools have you teach? Let me tell you your story. If there's anywhere you teach, can you please tell us where you taught or something like that? I mean,
He wants to know if you've ever had to like teach students about engineering.
Was the question, he wants to know if she has interest in teaching students about engineering?
Yes.
Excellent.
I have one more question.
So do you have any interest in teaching engineering?
So I do, but at a high school. So I think my dream was always that if I had a chance for a second career, I would teach in a high school. So one way that I do that is I volunteer as much as I can. So I try to act as a STEM mentor in other ways. So for those in Hartford, you'll have my email address. Let me know if you're interested. But I try to do what I can to bring people in to kind of show them what an engineer really does. And then I try to go into schools and do as much as I can as well.
Great. All right. So before we go to our next site at DH Conley with Mr. Walston's class, I do want to ask a question that came in from YouTube on the chat space. So what do you think would have happened in your life if you didn't take so many chances?
Oh man, these are good questions. What would have happened? I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. And I think that I may have ended up in a very different place. I'm sure I would have been just as happy. For me to not take a chance is like kind of rare. I like to try new things. That's what I'm constantly seeking. But had I not taken a chance, it's highly probable that I would have ended up doing something that I wasn't nearly as happy with, not as inspired by. I may not have moved out of Michigan, right? I'd still be still be in Michigan, probably focused on automotive stuff, right, which wasn't really my thing, but it was pretty common that people would just kind of go automatically into when they went to engineering school there. So I think I would be a much different person. I think it probably impacts me a little bit more socially and kind of who I've become on my own as a person than it would necessarily in my career. I think a lot of the chances that I've taken have helped me grow as a person, and given me new opportunities in terms of the people that I've met and how they've impacted my life. So I probably wouldn't have moved around as much and had nearly as many exciting opportunities that have come my way.
All right, thank you. Okay, so DH Conley, let's head over to Mr. Walston's class for some questions. Do you have any questions there in Greenville, North Carolina? Mr. Walston's class, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone and your video.
All right, can we do that? All right, can we do that? Oh, God.
Do we have any questions, Mr. Walston?
Yes, I have a question. Well, no, it's not my question, it's someone else's.
Okay, go ahead.
How often do you see women in the engineering career?
Ooh, man, you guys are full of good ones. Not as often as I would like. I think that I would like to see it a lot more often. There are a lot of statistics, and I won't cite them because I will probably be wrong, but we can certainly look to provide some for you afterward. But I think that, you know, one of the biggest things that I see is that when I look around at who I work with, as wonderful as everyone is, they don't often reflect who I am, or even one facet of who I am sometimes, right? So I think that, you know, women are not nearly as much of the population as we would hope they would be. So something we're working on. And I think it's something UTC is very committed to, and my boss is very committed to as well. He's been an incredible sponsor of some of our diversity programs here to be able to increase the representation within our engineering population.
Absolutely. All right. Well, those are great questions to start off with. So, Ciara, can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your job and how does it contribute to a sustainable future?
Yeah, absolutely. So I put a couple pictures together to kind of make me, you know, remember all of the different things. But I think that if you look at United Technologies as a whole, one of the things that they, you know, really are very, very very serious about is their entire portfolio's opportunity to contribute to a sustainable future. So while I've not worked on jet engines specifically, I can very much speak to the fact that, you know, we've come out with a major new technology change that's really shifting the industry in our geared turbofan engine design that's able to reduce fuel consumption by a pretty significant amount and actually help, you know, when you think about global warming and climate change and all of those things and the impact that CO2 and emissions have on the environment, yeah, the airlines and jet engines are a big contributor of that as well. So just on the design front, we're doing quite a bit in terms of making sure that our products are actually contributing to that on their own. If I look back at the work that I did at Carrier, I think I touched on a couple of things in terms of reducing food waste, but I think one big thing that Carrier has done, and you know, I was very proud of and excited to see go into the market and be tested, was their use of a natural refrigerant for their systems. So a natural refrigerant, so the refrigerant is really the fluid that either heats or cools your space, right? It's a scientific fluid that basically has the ability to absorb heat or cooling and put it in a new place. And so a lot of those refrigerants that we currently have, they're rated by global warming potential. And so, you know, the goal is to be the lowest you can be. So CO2 has a global warming potential of 1. If you look at a lot of the refrigerants we use today, they're like 4,000. Pretty big difference, right? So one thing that Carrier has really pushed, and they've put product into the market on the container side, and you know, they've got a product that's, you know, being tested now is you know, a big refrigeration unit that's using CO2 as the working fluid, as the refrigerant. And when you look at our product in Europe on the cabinet side for grocery stores, they're already using CO2 as well. And that's a big part of the market that they have, is in using that natural refrigerant. So I think that Carrier's really made a name for themselves in terms of, you know, being kind of a natural leader in their space. to take care of the environment in that way. And so I think more on the food waste side, I've actually worked on projects in places like India where we can look at opportunities to help reduce the amount of food waste that happens in some places. So I worked on a couple of special projects there where I was meeting with customers and actually going to markets and seeing the amount of food waste that was happening to come up with solutions to how we can address that fit the market need that they have there as well. So we did a lot of work to help work on reducing food waste. And it's a big investment for the company for us to be able to go out and do these projects to see, where we can actually help, because they're projects that you may not actually see on the market ever, or they might be 5-10 years down the line in some cases. And the company is really making an investment and making a difference now, and allowing us to go explore those new opportunities. So I could go on and on about the products that we have and how they contribute to it, but that's, I think, one big way that we do it.
Great. Well, why don't we head back to our interactive sites, and we're going to see if anyone has any other questions before we conclude today's STEMExplore virtual field trip. So let's head over to Hartford, Connecticut with the YWCA at Windsor High School. Do you have any questions out there?
Question.
We have a shy group.
That's all right.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I can't even see your faces on the screen, so it's totally okay. If I see you on the street, I won't know that you were the one that asked me the question. So don't be nervous.
Do you use a Swiffer?
So I did for a very long time until I moved in with somebody. And now she is, obsessed with a different product, and it hurt me and pained me a lot. But I wanted her to be happy with how our floors were cleaned, so I gave up on that one. So I do not use a Swiffer, but every time I go into the store, I look at them to check out the new design. But we do still use the Swiffer duster, so I've won on some fronts.
Nice.
So cool.
All right, YWCA, do you have any other questions? And I just want to remind the viewing audience of how you can submit your questions. If you're watching on YouTube, you can use that chat. And on STEMexplore.org, simply click Submit Questions, and that will send you to a Google form. We do have a question before we head down south to DH Conley. Is there any risk to using carbon dioxide or CO2 as a refrigerant?
Ooh. Realistically, no. I mean, I think as long as you're using the product safely and the way that we advise you to use it, there's really no risk. It's better for the environment, and a lot of times it's actually a better refrigerant, so the product works more efficiently, especially in refrigeration applications. So there's no risk. You just have to listen to the instructions on how we provide our equipment and making sure that you're following those.
Great. All right, YWCA, last chance. Do you have one last question for Ciara?
Do you plan on staying with United Technologies, or do you have any future plans that will benefit you as an engineer?
That's a great question. Can you repeat that for us a little bit closer to the microphone?
I think so.
Do you plan on staying with United Technologies, or do you have future plans that still involve engineering?
Did my boss put you up to this? Did he write you? I plan on staying with United Technologies. I think I never know what my future holds, but my full intention is to stay with UTC. It sounds so cliche and so ridiculous, but I really do love working for this company. There's a great opportunity to have a diverse set of products to work on. I mean, you can have multiple careers within UTC. And I think that it's a company that really supports your lifelong learning. So if I got bored doing one aspect of engineering, I might be able to just go take a position somewhere else in the world or somewhere else in the country and go work on a different product set. So when I leave this job, I probably won't go back to Carrier. I might go work on jet engines. I might go work on elevators or what have you, right? So there's a large opportunity for me to be able to find something exciting within our products, no matter what it is. So, but you never know. You never know. I can't predict the future, right? So.
Great. Thank you for that. That was a really good question. Let's head down to Greenville, North Carolina to DH Conley. Let's check in with Ms. Wright's class to see if they have any last questions for Ciara. We can also check in with Mr. Walston's class down in Greenville as well. At DH Conley, do we have any questions? And I do have a sneaking suspicion that they have been dismissed. Well, I think that was wonderful. Really great questions, everyone. So YWCA, we're going to go for you one last time. Any other questions out there?
Any other questions?
What?
Oh,
yeah. What
Well-
has been your favorite product you've worked on so far?
Oh, that's a good one. What has been your favorite product to work on so far?
So I in my previous role, I had an amazing leadership team that really supported me with opportunities to kind of test out new ideas that I had and some of my colleagues had. So one thing that we worked on was a solution for maintaining the temperature of food when it's in delivery. So when you look at some places around the world where food delivery is becoming more common, you kind of want your food to either stay cold or hot, right, when it gets to your doorstep. So I had a really great time speaking with customers to understand what it was that they really wanted out of that product. What was it about, how do we measure what food quality is, right? Customers can kind of say, I like this food or I don't. You can't really tell them they're wrong, right? So how do we find a product that would objectively kind of tell us that we were actually successful as well? That's one of my favorite projects that I've worked on, and mostly because I got an opportunity to really hear firsthand what people wanted and what would help them help their business, and help make their businesses a little more efficient, more effective, and actually turn that into a product itself. And I wouldn't have been able to do that without the bosses that I had in that role, supporting me and kind of letting us run wild with our ideas at times and seeing where they might go.
Awesome. Great questions, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. And a big thank you to you, Ciara. This was absolutely wonderful. Thank you for joining us today. And I'd also like to thank the STEMExplore partner sites one last time, and especially those sites that were live and interactive today, our friends at Love a Sea Turtle, as well as our friends at YWCA Hartford. So great questions, everyone. Good job. So we just want to share with you some exciting opportunities coming up here at EarthEcho. Expedition Water by Design explores the issues of water scarcity and drought through free, innovative resources. Now, you can enter to win a $500 mini grant by submitting your stories of students exploring engineering design around water resource management or developing their own water conservation or restoration projects. For more information, you can visit earthecho.org, and our deadline is on World Water Day, March 22nd, and our winners will be announced on Earth Day, April 22nd. So be sure to tune in for our upcoming virtual field trips. STEMExplore will continue to bring relatable voices in STEM careers tonight at 5 p.m. Eastern with Carlene Polk, a geologist with the Bureau of Reclamation. We will also host 2 virtual field trips on November 1st at 3 p.m. and 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We're excited to speak with May Doricott and Amanda Hodo, both marine biologists who have taken very different career paths. For more information and to register for these exciting virtual field trips, visit STEMExplore.org. Click on the Live Events cabinet or the Virtual Field Trip tabs on the left. Our events will run through December 2018. And just a reminder, November 6th is Election Day, and we want to see you at the polls. If issues such as climate change and environmental sustainability are important to you, be sure you are registered and exercise your power and right to vote in November. Again, thank you so much. You can follow EarthEcho and all of our exciting programs on our social media channels, as well as on our websites. And thank you again so much to our wonderful STEMExplore mentor, Ciara Poolman, and to United Technologies for their tremendous support. And on behalf of EarthEcho International, Thank you all again so much for joining us. We hope to see you soon, and we hope that you have a wonderful day.
Bye. Make sure we don't.